Alright guys, this is my first batch of wine. It was originally made on January 15th, 2010. After 3 days we realized that it wasn't fermenting properly. The yeast hadn't come to life and really started to create bubbles. So what I did was I got on the internet, did a little bit of research, found out that the yeast needed oxygen and I needed to buy a cheesecloth to put over the top of my primary. I didn't have enough money to buy cheesecloth at the time, so I took an old piece of cloth, per suggestion on the internet. I took an old piece of cloth, I just sanitized it, rinsed it, made sure that it dried properly, laid it over the top for one night, and within an hour of putting the cap on top of it and putting an airlock on top of it the next day, it was producing bubbles pretty regularly, and that continued for quite some time. On February 20th, I took the wine out of the primary container, and I realized that it was ready to be transferred to the secondary. So I transferred it over. Obviously, I removed the bag of blackberries from it, and I put it in this container. And in order to make sure that there wasn't a whole lot of air in the top of this, I filled it up to about right here with water. During the second week of March, I took a gravity reading, and it read 1.000, and according to my little trusty instructions that I found here on the packaging that was on the can of Blackberry fruit base, I'm supposed to add 1 Campden tablet for every 1 gallon of wine that I have. I have about 4.5 in here, so I added about 4.5 crushed Campden tablets to it. As you can see, the wine has gone largely untouched since about the second week of March. There is a lot of sediment at the bottom of the container, so today I'm going to re-rack it. Right now I am transferring my wine to smaller containers. Back here on the floor there are a couple 1 gallons, and I think that this one holds somewhere between 2.5 to 3 gallons. So in this, after this process is done, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add some things to sweeten the taste, because while it was transferring, and as you can see I'm only using a hose, so I had to siphon it, I obviously got a little bit of taste in my mouth. It's not terrible, it's just not very sweet or fruity, and it it's very alcohol-y. There's a lot of alcohol in it, so if I can kind of cut that taste a little bit with a little bit of sweetness and maybe some fruit flavor, then I think that this could be a success. Just to give you an idea as to how much nastiness gets in the bottom of a secondary whenever you're making wine. There you go. It's kind of sloshed around a little bit because I had to pick it up, but definitely white. It's got creamy kind of a substance there. This will not be going in my bottles of wine. It's vital that you sanitize everything that you're working with whenever you make wine. Obviously, this is the same case for beer. Right now, I am sanitizing and making sure that there's no debris in the airlocks by cleaning them thoroughly. And then now I'm sanitizing them, letting them sit in some sanitizer water. And coming up next, I'm going to be sweetening the wine. The first bottle here, my green bottle, is just less than a gallon of blackberry wine. This is going to be my control. I am not going to be modifying this in any way, so my cap has been sanitized and rinsed. Now I'm just going to throw it on top, and I'm going to set this one off to the side and label it in just a minute. This is my experimental A batch of wine. I got about a gallon here. I already added 1 tablespoon of blackberry flavor, and now I'm going to add 3/4 of a cup of sugar to it. Now I'm going to take my my batch here that's got everything mixed into it. I've already set up my airlock. I'm going to throw the airlock on top of it. The reason I'm going to throw an airlock on top of this is in case there's any renewed fermentation due to the addition of new sugar and everything. So I don't think it's going to happen, but this is just kind of a precautionary thing. So after this, we're going to move on to experimental B. For experimental B, I'm going to amp up the flavoring and the sugar just a little bit. I'm going to add 1.5 tablespoons of blackberry flavor, and then I'm going to add about 1.25 cup of sugar to this gallon of blackberry wine. Now I'm going to throw the airlock on this one in case there's any renewed fermentation, just like I did experimental A. I'm going to throw my airlock on top of it. I'm going to label it and set it down on the floor with the other two batches, the control and experimental A. And then I'm going to get ready for the last one, which I'm going to go a little bit wild with. For experimental C, I'm going to be doing something pretty close to what I did on the last two. I'm going to kind of shoot for the middle in terms of blackberry flavoring adding and how much sugar that I add to it. But I did a lot of reading on the internet, and I kind of found out that a way that a lot of people make their wine taste a little bit more winey, I guess would be the word for it. One way that they do that is they buy just raisins at the store, and then whenever they transfer it and they sweeten it, they take their bag of raisins and they throw it down in the bottom of it. And obviously, whenever I bottle this stuff, I'm not going to be taking the raisins with me, but the wine is supposed to kind of take on some of that sweet, natural fruit flavor as a result of this. So this is more than a gallon, but per 1 gallon, I'm going to be adding 1.5 tablespoons of blackberry flavor, 1 cup of sugar, and then these 15 ounces of raisins. Okay, so right now I'm just using a rod to kind of stir all these raisins and all the sugar up so that it kind of dissolves into the water as much as it can. I happen to think that one of the cooler features of wine as compared to beer is that if this ends up tasting like, you know, horse mess and it's not good at all, say it's too sweet, I can add some soda water to it to kind of deaden the flavor, the sweetness a little bit. Or if it's not sweet enough, I can always add 7-Up or Sprite or something like that whenever I drink it, so that, you know, it's salvageable. If beer sucks, it sucks and it's gone, and you kind of have to get rid of it. If wine sucks, the alcohol's still there. You can add things to it to kind of bring out the flavor or to deaden the flavor a little bit. So I'm going to stir this up now. Actually, most of that sugar down there in the bottom is mostly dissolved. Trying not to stir this too vigorously, but I don't really think I have a choice because I really do need it to dissolve as much as possible. The raisins are kind of sitting down there at the bottom chilling out. Next I'm going to throw an airlock on this in case it continues to ferment because of what I threw in it, like I said before. Then I'm going to throw a label on it, and then I'll show you my finished product in just a second. Alright, so here we have my control, my experimental B, and then my experimental C. As you can see down here at the bottom of experimental C here on the end, there's you can see the raisins down there. They're starting to take on some of the water and swell up just a little bit. So you can see some sugar settling in the bottom of these. At the end of this whole process, whenever this is all done and I go to transfer these to bottles for drinking, obviously the sugar that's sitting at the bottom is not going to be transferred along with because it's probably going to be too gooey to move, and the raisins are going to stay, and I'll just toss those out. So I believe that concludes my my little experiment with my first batch of wine. We'll taste it in about 1 month and again in 2 months, and we'll see if it tastes like crap.